Okay, to get started, I'm going to show you once again that there were a ton of satellites in the area when I filmed on the 10th. And I will unscale the moon so it's not 4 times too big. It's right on the horizon here, and this is kind of a funny thing because a few days ago when I looked at this, the moon was up about here this time of night, so I don't know what's going on. I guess when you go back in time, this isn't so accurate anymore. But at any rate, I'll turn on satellites. The moon is centered. And the first one I'm going to show you is this Cosmos satellite. I'm going to just roll it forward, and you can see the trajectory that it's on. And actually, let me get in on the moon a bit. And again, the moon was higher when I shot this. I don't know why Stellarium's done this, but anyhow, it's just about the right trajectory, right speed. Everything's right for this, so I'm pretty sure that's one of the things that I'm going to show you. And the next time here is 21:06. Let me roll forward, turn on satellites. And here it comes. And there's Cosmos 2058, and it's on one of the trajectories. The speed is close. So let me get to the next one, 2146. And I'll roll it forward. There it goes. The source satellite. And again, as I've told you in the past, these aren't real accurate. You'd have to update by the hour, and even if you do that, and you'll see I'll show you some satellites that are going up and down on the moon in this way, but the source satellite is probably one of them. The trajectory is right, the time is right. And the last one is 2313. Let me find the moon again. There it is. Let me center it. And this is the satellite right here. I'll back it up. This is backwards, and this is forward. And there's just a ton of them throughout the night, so I'm pretty sure everything that I'm going to show you here is satellites. Okay, I'm showing these numbers not to show accuracy of orbits, because with elliptical orbits and all that, you can find numbers all over the place. But what it does show is the lower an object is in orbit, the faster it goes. That's what I'm trying to point out here. Alright, so I think this first thing is one of the Cosmos satellites, which I showed you earlier. It's under 600 kilometers. I think it worked out to something like 370 statute miles or regular miles. And the reason I'm showing that is because it's easy to be fooled. They look kind of like birds, and there you see it going on a straight line. And the reason they look like birds is because they have almost a transparent look, a lot of the satellites, and when they go over the background, it almost looks like they're flapping, but it's not the case. And I guess I could have got some bird footage to show. The size of these being so small is also telling, but when you draw a straight line and it's perfectly straight, that tells you something as well, along with lining up with Stellarium and other websites. And this is the same satellite, just slowed down and zoomed a bit. Now I'm going to show you a few of these in repetition from the same night. We seem to have been in a satellite path, which happens quite often, and they're all coming from a similar direction for a while and a similar speed. And don't get fooled, that was a perfectly straight line. It's just the way I edited when I zoomed, and the circle's not moving perfectly flat. So it's an optical illusion. The object is actually moving on a perfectly straight line. I put a line down for each of these, and a couple of them I leave the line in so you can see it. Here comes another one in the upper left. And all these look exactly the same, and they're coming from a similar direction, traveling in a similar speed. A couple of them are much quicker, but most of them are close to a similar speed. This is the same one slowed down quite a bit. And again, it is on a perfectly straight trajectory if you draw a line under it. That one's hauling butt, and here he comes slowed down a bit. I think maybe 50%. And actually, when I edit, I should be careful to make sure that the circle goes on a flat line so that optical illusion doesn't enter into this. And here's the satellites that look kind of like shadows, and it's real easy to think these are birds. But again, I think that might have been the source satellite that I showed you earlier. It's perfectly straight and flat, but this is, I've confirmed from 2 states, 500 miles away, satellites that look exactly like this. And at the end of the clip, I'll include one that's a little more distinct. And there's the line that shows the flat trajectory. So a lot of satellites look like these two things that I've just showed you, these two kind of typical looks, which, you know, when you take the first slide I showed you about speed, these are moving at a pretty good clip, and they're in low Earth orbit, according to the Stellarium lookup. So what are these things? I'm not saying these are aliens by any stretch of the imagination. The simple explanation is that they're technology of some sort. This is the classic boomerang footage that's been around for a long time, and I take a couple stills here and I'll show you a not very good graphic of what it looks like. It's something like this, and actually in some of the views they don't look round, they look more like little boxy things, angular things, but it's clearly in a boomerang shape. Here's another one that I called a boomerang. It's got a similar look. It's got this little dot that comes with it, but look how slow it is going. So if it is in fact in Earth orbit, it is way the heck up there to move this slow. A full moon from edge to edge is roughly New York to LA, you know, 2,600 miles or something like that. Half a degree of sky on the full moon. So these things, if they're anywhere near the moon, and we don't have a way to judge that unless we have multiple scopes looking at the same time, are going much slower than the satellites that we typically see up around low Earth orbit, 200 to maybe 400 miles, regular miles, up to about something like 600 kilometers off the top of my head. And you can tell this thing is drifting and floating and turning in a way that a regular plane does not. And here is a satellite. This is the Bright PL satellite. This was viewed in two states with telescopes 500 miles apart, simultaneous. Now this satellite passes an object. Here comes the satellite at the lower right, slowed down. And this one takes on the other look that I'm familiar with, where it looks like it's got solar wings and it's spinning around, but it still has the translucent look, and it's going to pass an unlisted object. I tried to look that object up everywhere, and I'll come back to it as the Bright PL satellite goes away. And again, this was viewed by two scopes 500 miles apart in real time. I was on the phone and we saw it simultaneous, which means these are really high. The lag time was not that much. So these black objects, these boomerang looking objects, they're something else. You know, they're probably technology. I don't think there's little green men in these things. I don't know what they are. But I filmed them because they're never reported on, and you know, I filmed a lunar wave. Could these things have something to do with that? I just don't know, so I try to cover them. And then on the same night, I had quite a few plane transits, so I'll include those because they're kind of cool to see. Since you feel like you're on Fantasy Island, sometimes maybe it's a good thing to include the planes. And here comes the first one, passenger jet. And this is the same plane slowed down. And you've seen other ones that I filmed. There's actually a heck of a lot less exhaust coming out of this plane than some of the bigger jumbo jets. And here comes an even smaller one from the right. There he is. And I'll zoom in and slow him down. You'll see the light blink once, there it is, and then he comes into frame. So I showed you all these satellites just to kind of demonstrate that they look very different than a lot of these solid black or the haloed black things that I film, and they're interesting, and it would be really cool to know what they are. So anyhow, there it is. Cheers, and we do have the new equipment to go at this. So there it is.